Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at Dagon, which for those of you that don't know is a free Call of Cthulhu experience or a recreation of H.P Lovecraft's book Dagon. Looks like there is some DLC as well, but this version that we're playing right here is completely free to check out on Steam VR. For those of you guys that don't know, I am a massive H.P Lovecraft fan. And there has been a lot of game adaptations of H.P. Lovecraft's famous work. However, sadly, though, none of them have really seemed to hit the mark, except for H.P. Lovecraft's The Call of Cthulhu. That was made a couple of years ago, and I would love to see that game made in VR. But for now, we have Dagon. So let's go ahead and get started and jump right in. This video is sponsored by QE Designs, one of my absolute favorite VR accessory companies. I've been using these Quest 2 hand straps for quite some time. They give you the classic Valve Index controller feel. They are much more comfortable than your stock controller and add a lot more length for larger hands. Also, my favorite is the Quest 2 Elite strap, which is super comfortable and adds a massive upgrade from the stock strap that ships with the Quest 2. Of course, links will always be in the description, and make sure to use discount code JoshyPoshy to save yourself 5%, and of course help the support of growing this channel. Okay, during the game you will encounter interactive elements. Some of them will allow you to continue your journey, or others reveal interesting facts about the original short story, its historical background, and the author. Some of the trivia is hidden, and in order to find these secrets, focus your eyes and look for the Elder sign. You can also access all of the found facts later. They will be available in the main menu. Maybe we'll put those at the end of this video. For the sake of keeping it relatively short, I don't want to go just on and on and on with a bunch of reading. I want you guys to experience the story of Dagon, and then maybe we'll give our review of the game at the end. But right off the bat, this is a gorgeous VR game. Holy cow. The sound of the rain pitter-pattering on the window is just top notch. So it looks like there's snap turn, which I'm personally not a big fan of in VR games,
and
but
at the end of my supply of the drug which alone makes life endurable, I can bear the torture no longer, and shall cast myself from this garret window into the squalid street below. Do not think from my slavery to morphine that I am a weakling or a degenerate. When you have read these hastily scrawled pages, you may guess, though never fully realize, why it is that I must have forgetfulness or death.
all right. So we are an author, and we are going to commit suicide, and clearly we are addicted to morphine. So this is an elder sign, which is going to give us a little bit of backstory on the history of morphine and how it was used, and that it was sold pretty much without restrictions until 1914. Pretty much anybody and everybody could get strung out on morphine without them really knowing back in, 1861, 1865, 1914, 1918, what the consequences of those actions were. So
It was in one of the most open and least frequented parts of the broad Pacific that the packet of which I was supercargo fell a victim to the German sea raider.
It's just so beautiful, the environment. This is so well done at first glance. The voice acting is top notch. It's just, it feels like I'm in a H.P. Lovecraft short story, which is just, it's breathtaking for me, primarily because I am such an H.P. Lovecraft fanboy, but this isn't going to be an experience for most people. But if you guys are having a good time, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I'm going to record the full playthrough of Dagon. If this is something that you would like to see more than just my review footage, leave a comment down below. But man, it's just so incredibly immersive.
The Great War was then at its very beginning, and the ocean forces of the Hun had not completely sunk to their later degradation.
German World War I flag. So I'm on like a German boat. See, like, nothing is interactable, though, sadly. It would be cool if there was just a little bit of interaction, or just if they would have rendered hands. That would have been cool, but...
So that our vessel was made a legitimate
just keep our hands out of the way,
whilst we of her crew were
so it doesn't
with all the
break
fairness
the
and consideration due us
beautiful
as
immersion
naval
of this
prisoners.
game. The water looks... Notably, the water is just so cool. I could just see, like, Cthulhu rising out of the seabed over there, but... So give us a little history of the Huns there. You can pause the video. I'm not going to read it all.
So liberal, indeed, was the discipline of our captors, that 5 days after we were taken, I managed to escape alone in a small boat with water and provisions for a good length of time.
That's it. I got one water pouch, a big thing of Spam, and a big thing of sardines.
When I finally found myself adrift and free, I had but little idea of my surroundings.
So this here is classic H.P. Lovecraft storytelling. So one of the big issues with Call of Cthulhu, or I keep saying Call of Cthulhu, but I should say H.P. Lovecraft. One of the big issues with the Cthulhu Mythos in film and in video games is that it's very, very hard to convey the feeling of existential dread, which H.P. Lovecraft's work heavily relies on. You know, you can watch a movie on TV. A good example is Underwater with Kristen Stewart, and you immediately get this overwhelming sense of dread that all hope is lost for the main characters of the movie. And the games don't necessarily do that, because obviously you play games to win them. So when a game is made, you have a hard time establishing these feelings of dread. But in an experience like VR, giving those emotional ties to the characters and the feeling of dread and hopelessness as we're looking out into, you know, the pale moonlight of the ocean with not knowing what is beneath us, it does it very, very well. So I can only hope that VR studios start digging more into Lovecraft's work, because it's top notch.
Never a competent navigator, I could only guess vaguely by the sun and stars that I was somewhat south of the equator. Of the longitude, I knew nothing, and no island or coastline was in sight.
Yes. Yes.
The weather kept fair, and for uncounted days I drifted aimlessly beneath the scorching sun, waiting either for some passing ship or to be cast on the shores of some habitable land.
But it never does happen to you, buddy, does it? It never does happen. What is that noise I keep hearing? It's like a meow.
But neither ship nor land appeared, and I began to despair in my solitude upon the heaving vastness of unbroken blue.
Yes, so we're starting to run low on provisions, and it is getting dark and grim. And typically, in Lovecraft, this is where it's about to go very sideways.
The change happened whilst I slept. Its details I shall never know, for my slumber, though troubled and dream-infested, was continuous.
Uh-oh. Oh, goodness gracious. What is that? Why am I so low to the ground? Why am I so close to them?
When at last I awoke, it was to discover myself half sucked into a slimy expanse of hellish black mire, which extended about me in monotonous undulations as far as I could see, and in which my boat lay grounded some distance away. Though one might well imagine that my first sensation would be of wonder at so prodigious and unexpected a transformation of scenery, I was in reality more horrified than astonished.
Yeah, this is, I was gonna say, there was a large octopus right next to me, and he's not there anymore. That made me real nervous for a second, so you stay in your lane over there, bud.
For there was in the air, and in the rotting soil, a sinister quality which chilled me to the very core. The region was putrid with the carcasses of decaying fish, and of other, less describable things which I saw protruding from the nasty mud of the unending plain. Perhaps I should not hope to convey in mere words the unutterable hideousness that can dwell in absolute silence and barren immensity. There was nothing within hearing, and nothing in sight, save a vast reach of black slime. Yet the very completeness of the stillness and the homogeneity of the landscape oppressed me with a nauseating fear.
Wow, guys, this is so incredibly cool. Like, just immersive. The soundtrack, I keep saying it over and over again, the soundtrack and the graphics and voice acting.
The sun was blazing down from a sky which seemed to me almost black in its cloudless cruelty, as though reflecting the inky marsh beneath my feet.
What's crazy is that you don't know, actually, in Dagon, at least so far in this game, if we're dreaming this just being passed out in our boat as the sun is beating down on our face and we're, have sunstroke and heat exhaustion, if this is all just vivid dreams or if it actually happened to them. It's always, a mystery.
As I crawled into the stranded boat, I realized that only one theory could explain my position.
Oh my God, what is that thing? It's big in breathing.
Through some unprecedented volcanic upheaval, a portion of the ocean floor must have been thrown to the surface, exposing regions for which innumerable millions of years had lain hidden under unfathomable watery depths. So great was the extent of the new land which had risen beneath me that I could not detect the faintest noise of the surging ocean, straining my ears as I might. Nor were there any seafowl to prey upon the dead things. For several hours I sat thinking or brooding in the boat, which lay upon its side and afforded a slight shade as the sun moved across the heavens.
Once again, I think I could take the octopuses, but that has me very unsettled.
As the day progressed, the ground lost some of its stickiness and seemed likely to dry sufficiently for traveling purposes in a short time. That night I slept but little, and the next day I made for myself a pack containing food and water, preparatory to an overland journey in search of the vanished sea.
I wouldn't be able to sleep either, bud.
On the third morning, I found the soil dry enough to walk upon with ease.
Huh. Everything disappeared.
The odor of the fish was maddening, but I was too much concerned with graver things to mind so slight an evil, and set out boldly for an unknown goal.
Can I walk finally? No. So there's no movement, there is no anything except just clicking the next story point. So this is fully just an immersive story that you visually get to experience. Nothing wrong with that, though. There is a place for things like this in VR.
All day I forged steadily westward, guided by a faraway hummock which rose higher than any other
very well done
on the rolling desert.
What are these things? What on earth? Oh, look at that whale. Something killed that very large whale. Whatever these things are.
That night, I encamped, and on the following day still traveled toward the hummock, though that object seemed scarcely nearer than when I had first espied it.
It's great. I love it. I very well might end up checking out the DLC of this game.
By the fourth evening, I attained the base of the mound, which turned out to be much higher than it had appeared from a distance.
If you'd like to see the DLC, leave a comment down below and maybe we'll pick it up and check it out. It is paid DLC, but if it's anything like Dagon, I'd be all for it.
An intervening valley setting it out in sharper relief from the general surface. Too weary to ascend, I slept in the shadow of the hill. I know not why my dreams were so wild that night, but ere the waning and fantastically gibbous moon had risen far above the eastern plain, I was awake in a cold perspiration, determined to sleep no more.
Man, it is looking dismal for us.
Such visions as I had experienced were too much for me to endure again. And in the glow of the moon I saw how unwise I had been to travel by day. Without the glare of the parching sun, my journey would have cost me less energy. Indeed, I now felt quite able to perform the ascent which had deterred me at sunset. Picking up my pack, I started for the crest of the eminence.
We shall climb you, and by climb, I mean we're gonna find the next point to progress the story.
I have said that the unbroken monotony of the rolling plain was a source of vague horror to me.
Man, if this game had just very simple forms of interaction, this would just be so good.
But I think my horror was greater when I gained the summit of the mound and looked down the other side into an immeasurable pit or canyon, whose black recesses the moon had not yet soared high enough to illumine. I felt myself on the edge of the world, peering over the rim into a fathomless chaos of eternal night. Through my terror ran curious reminiscences of Paradise Lost and of Satan's hideous climb through the unfashioned realms of darkness.
What is that over there?
As the moon climbed higher in the sky, I began to see that the slopes of the valley were not quite so perpendicular as I had imagined. Ledges and outcroppings of rock afforded fairly easy footholds for a descent.
Why, though? Why? Why are we descending? I don't want to descend.
Whilst after a drop of only a few hundred feet, the declivity became very gradual.
I know what's in there, and you guys know, as H.P Lovecraft fans as well, what is probably in there, so I don't know why we're going. This is where it gets real, I feel like,
Urged
YouTube.
On by an impulse which I cannot definitely analyze, I scrambled with difficulty down the rocks and stood on the gentler slope beneath.
What is that thing?
Gazing into the Stygian deeps, where no light had yet penetrated. All at once, my attention was captured by a vast and singular object on the opposite slope, which rose steeply about 100 yards ahead of me. An object that gleamed whitely in the newly bestowed rays of the ascending moon.
Oh boy.
That it was merely a gigantic piece of stone, I soon assured myself.
That is sadly, my friend, where you made your first mistake.
But I was conscious of a distinct impression that its contour and position were not altogether the work of nature. A closer scrutiny filled me with sensations I cannot express. For despite its enormous magnitude and its position in an abyss which had yawned at the bottom of the sea since the world was young, I perceived beyond a doubt that the strange object was a well-shaped monolith, whose massive bulk had known the workmanship and perhaps the worship of living and thinking creatures.
The deep ones.
Dazed and frightened,
The
yet
deep
not without a certain
ones.
thrill of the scientist's or archaeologist's delight, I examined my surroundings more closely.
Well, I don't know how this story is how we get ourselves out of this.
The moon, now near the
Yeah.
zenith, shone weirdly and vividly above the towering steeps that hemmed in the chasm.
Perfect. This is about as well as I expected this to go, for sure. Wow. It's really cool, though. It's really cool. I've got this weird feeling in my chest of, like, every time I click next that it moves to a new loading screen, that there's just going to be something horrifying waiting in the next loading screen for me, but...
And revealed the fact that a far-flung body of water flowed at the bottom, winding out of sight in both directions and almost lapping my feet as I stood on the slope. Across the chasm, the wavelets washed the base of the cyclopean monolith, on whose surface I could now trace both inscriptions and crude sculptures.
Alrighty. Well, I've got this nasty feeling that this next loading screen is going to put us in this water, which I don't want to be anywhere near water.
The writing was in a system of hieroglyphics unknown to me and unlike anything I'd ever seen in books.
Ugh, let's look at this for a second. There's Big Daddy Cthulhu right in the middle there, which is fantastic.
Consisting for the most part of conventionalized aquatic symbols such as fishes, eels, octopi, crustaceans, mollusks, whales, and the like. Several characters obviously represented marine things which are unknown to the modern world, but whose decomposing forms I had observed on the ocean-risen plain.
Oh yeah.
It was the pictorial carving, however, that did most to hold me spellbound.
That one right there in the middle.
Plainly visible across the intervening water, on account of their enormous size, were an array of bas-reliefs whose subjects would have excited the envy of a doré. I think that these things were supposed to depict men, at least a certain sort of men, though the creatures were shown disporting like fishes in the waters of some marine grotto.
Merman.
Or paying homage at some monolithic shrine, which appeared to be under the waves as well.
This one, guy. It's this one. They're here. I guarantee it.
Of their faces and forms I dare not speak in detail,
Damn it.
for the mere remembrance makes me grow faint.
Yeah, this is getting real fast for us.
Grotesque beyond the imagination of a Poe or a Bulwer. They were damnably human in general outline, despite webbed hands and feet, shockingly wide and flabby lips, glassy, bulging eyes, and other features less pleasant to recall. Curiously enough, they seem to have been chiseled badly out of proportion with their scenic background. For one of the creatures was shown in the act of killing a whale, represented as but little larger than himself.
I mean, unless they're that big.
I remarked, as I say, their grotesqueness and strange size, but in a moment decided that they were merely the imaginary gods of some primitive fishing or seafaring tribe. Some tribe whose last descendant had perished eras before the first ancestor of the Piltdown or Neanderthal man was born. Awestruck at this unexpected glimpse into a past beyond the conception of the most daring anthropologist, I stood musing whilst the moon cast queer reflections on the silent channel before me. Then, suddenly, I saw it.
Saw what? I don't want to see anything. I don't want to click the next trigger button.
With only a slight churning to mark its rise to the surface,
Oh, God.
the thing slid into view above the dark waters.
Holy shit.
It darted like a stupendous monster of nightmares to the monolith, about which it flung its gigantic scaly arms.
Holy
Bowed its hideous
cow.
head and gave vent to certain measured sounds. I think I went mad then. Of my frantic ascent of the slope and cliff, and of my delirious journey back to the stranded boat, I remember little. I believe I sang a great deal and laughed oddly when I was unable to sing.
Because I have gone mad.
Indistinct recollections of a great storm sometime after I reached the boat.
Oh, well, the rain, kind of a little disappointing. The rain is a little low quality in comparison to the graphics of the rest of the
At
game,
any
but
rate, I know that I heard pearls of thunder and other tones which nature utters only in her wildest moods. When I came out of the shadows, I was in a San Francisco hospital.
okay.
Brought thither by the captain of the American ship which had picked up my boat in mid-ocean. In my delirium, I had said much, but found that my words had been given scant attention.
Very typical of Cthulhu or Lovecraft is you experience something that words cannot describe, that have descended you into madness, and then mysteriously you get out of it, and nobody believes you.
Of any land upheaval in the Pacific, my rescuers knew nothing. Nor did I deem it necessary to insist upon a thing which I knew they could not believe.
Oh, here we go. Go ahead and pause there if you'd like to read it.
Once I sought out a celebrated ethnologist and amused him with peculiar questions regarding the ancient Philistine legend of Dagon, the fish god.
There we go. Tell you a little bit more about Dagon, which is who we saw at the monolith there, and the name of the entire story.
But soon perceiving that he was hopelessly conventional, I did not press my inquiries.
Ah, the Necronomicon.
It is at night, especially when the moon is gibbous and waning, that I see the thing. I tried morphine, but the drug has given only transient surcease and has drawn me into its clutches as a hopeless slave.
What is that circle?
So now I am to end it all, having written a full account for the information or the contemptuous amusement of my fellow men. Often I ask myself if it could not all have been a pure phantasm, a mere freak of fever as I lay sun-stricken and raving in the open boat after my escape from the German man of war. This I ask myself, but ever does there come before me a hideously vivid vision in reply. I cannot think of the deep sea without shuddering at the nameless things that may at this very moment be crawling and floundering on its slimy bed.
Oh, please show something big.
Worshipping their ancient stone idols.
Yes.
And their own detestable likenesses on
Oh my God.
water-soaked granite. I dream of a day when they may rise above the billows to drag down into their reeking talons the remnants of puny, war-exhausted mankind. Of a day when the land shall sink, and the dark ocean shall ascend amidst universal pandemonium. The end is near.
What in the hell? They're coming for me.
I hear a noise at the door, as of some immense slippery body lumbering against it.
Who is it?
It shall not find me. God, that hand!
Dagon!
The window! The window!
And just like that, our descent into madness is over. Total runtime of this game was about 35 minutes. I'm sure that we could have hunted a little bit more for the elder signs or the, snippets of information that were throughout the game, but if you played the story at the same pace and speed that I played it at, it'll run you at about 35 minutes of just pure H.P. Lovecraft perfection. So let's go ahead and give a quick breakdown of my thoughts on the game and go ahead and assign it a score. So number 1 for gameplay and narrative, Dagon does a phenomenal job at the retelling of H.P. Lovecraft's famous short story, Dagon, which I 100% think that if you are a fan of Call of Cthulhu or you're a fan of Lovecraft or cosmic horror in general, you absolutely should give this game a try. So I'm going to go ahead and give gameplay and narrative a 5 out of 5. So for the gameplay mechanics, number 2 point of my review of Dagon, there is none. There are no gameplay mechanics, there is no inventory system, there is no interacting with objects, there is literally nothing to do in this game except look around and click your trigger forward to progress the story. This was kind of a letdown for me, honestly, because I really wished that there would have been just some form of interacting, even if it was, picking up the morphine bottle or picking up a booze bottle or just any form of gameplay mechanic would have been really, really nice to see, and I think it would have literally pushed this experience over the top for me. I also think that the not having hands in such an immersive game was kind of also a really big letdown for me, so sadly, I will give the gameplay mechanics of Dagon a 1 out of 5. Number 3 point of review is bugs and issues, and we didn't really have any. The game ran fantastically on my computer, as it should. There was no hiccuping, there was no stuttering in the headset. You just put it on, booted up the game in Steam VR, and everything worked. There was no bugs, no weird graphical glitches. All of the enemies, if you want to call them that, all of the environmental pieces, all were in their appropriate places, and everything looked great. Bugs and issues, I'm going to go ahead and give Dagon a 5 out of 5 as well. Number 4 is going to be graphics and audio, and it's something that Dagon does phenomenally well. The visuals of the game are fantastic, but of course you will have that being on PC VR, so it's very, very well done. Although there is no moving around or playing the game, the environment that you're in is extremely immersive. Everything looks fantastic. The soundtrack is rock solid. The audio is really good. The creatures like sliming around all sound awesome. The rain sounded really good, even though it kind of didn't fit the environment because the rain didn't look nearly as high quality as the rest of the world. Everything in this game for graphics and audio wise are top notch. My favorite part is the voice acting. Whoever voiced this narrative did a beautiful job. So despite the rain being the biggest downfall of the graphics and audio section of this game, I'm going to head and award Dagon a 5 out of 5 as well. All right, and down to number 5, which is going to be the value given here. Now, this is kind of an interesting category because Dagon only comes in at 35 minutes, and it's not really a game, it's more of a virtual reality experience. And it's for a very specific type of person, right? Somebody who enjoys cosmic horror, or somebody who enjoys H.P. Lovecraft and wants to visually experience that short story. But I think that there's a ton of value here, even at its short playtime, because it's completely free. So for that reason, I have to give Dagon a 5 out of 5 on value, because you're not paying anything in order to experience a great 35-minute storytelling. Which brings Dagon to a overall 4.2 out of 5, which is a great game to experience. I particularly suggest this game once again if you really enjoy Call of Cthulhu and H.P. Lovecraft and cosmic horror. I'll see you guys all on the next video. Peace.